Notre Dame, first national championship game appearance since, what did I say, 2013?
Yeah.
Haven't won one in, nearly 4 decades, 27-24 over Penn State. Your initial thoughts?
At halftime, I would have told you this wouldn't happen. I think you have to give a lot of kudos to Marcus Freeman and his staff for the adjustments that they made coming out of halftime, because whatever they were doing in the first half wasn't working. And I don't want this to go unnoticed. That backup quarterback for Notre Dame came in for halftime, led them down the field, got a critical 3 points to come back and keep it a one-possession game. I think Riley Leonard stepped up to the occasion. I think when the moment was the biggest, he was ready to go. And I think Drew Aller and James Franklin are going to have a lot of questions going forward. Did Notre Dame win this game, or did Penn State lose?
Yeah, well, I talked to you before the game started. I was talking to you about quarterback accuracy for both of these guys. Both of them, to me, underperformed in a college football semifinal. Drew Aller got away with a couple with the pass interference calls. And look, in some cases they were legit, but still, he was putting the football in harm's way. So was Riley Leonard. I think really the team with the two best players, when you talk about Abdul Carter and the way he played and the way Tyler Warren played, the tight end for Penn State on offense, that's the team that's not going to the national championship. Yeah. Penn State really won the line of scrimmage in the first half. To your point, Notre Dame had the most success when their backup quarterback was in the game, went down and got the points before halftime. But to come out and to make those type of adjustments, the first drive of the third quarter for Notre Dame, to be able to go down and put the football in the end zone like that, I thought that really set the tone. But, a lot of people were criticizing the college football playoff so far. We had a lot of blowouts. Here we go. We get a 27-24 game that's down to the wire with a field goal at the end. I mean, this one lived up to the hype.
This is maybe, if not one of the best games in the playoffs. We can talk about that Texas-Arizona State game. But now you look at Notre Dame going forward with the matchup between either Ohio State or Texas. I think Riley Leonard coming back after that supposed concussion, just shows how tough and gritty Riley Leonard is as a player and as a leader. And I think that shows, and that's a reflection of the guy we're looking at right now on the TV, Marcus Freeman. Mm-hmm. I think Notre Dame is poised and good enough to match up with either team they're going to face in the national championship.
See, you say that because I was just about to say I feel differently with this Notre Dame win than we did a week ago after they beat Georgia. I think most of the country would agree with that too. Just the way they came out and played against Georgia, the way they were able to win the line of scrimmage on both sides of the football, even though Riley Leonard only threw for 90 yards in that game, it seemed like Notre Dame was so in command against Georgia. I didn't feel like they were in command here. Again, kudos to coming out and being able to win a tight football game that's back and forth against a really good Penn State team. I just feel like they're going to be the underdogs against either team they face.
For sure. But I think this Notre Dame team has something you can't teach, right? And that's grittiness, right? Good teams find ways to win when they're not even playing their best ball. You can see that against Georgia. Notre Dame came out and were not playing their best ball in the first half, and still you walked into halftime down a possession. Against Ohio State, is Ohio State better than you from a roster standpoint? For sure. Is Texas better than you from a roster standpoint? For sure. But some teams just have grit, and they have a little fairy dust on them when you walk into the playoffs. And Notre Dame feels like that team. You can't just beat them. You have to kill them.
Well, coming into this matchup, the all-time series between Notre Dame and Penn State was 9-9-1. Notre Dame's now going to take the lead in that. And like I told you before the game, we had talked all season about this hypothetical matchup. Remember in weeks 4, 5, 6, and 7, we kept saying, well, how good is Penn State? How good is Notre Dame after that loss to Northern Illinois, even though they went on the road to Texas A&M in week 1 and got a great win? And we kept saying, well, what if Notre Dame and Penn State played? Who would you take? We said it all year. We finally got that matchup, and it was in a semifinal game in the Orange Bowl, and it really lived up to the hype. So let's talk a little bit about the matchup that we're going to see tomorrow night. And for some people listening to this recap here later on tonight, hopefully we're up here at Mission Cigar again, which is a shout out to Mark and Monty Collins for having us here at Mission. Hopefully we're here. There's a snowstorm coming. We may have to do it from my house one way or another. We're going to be live streaming this Texas game against the Buckeyes. What are you anticipating in that one?
Well, it's kind of an interesting matchup, and I think Texas's defense somewhat matches well with Ohio State's offense. This will be the biggest front seven Ohio State has seen the entire year, and it's one of those things you have to make Ohio State one-dimensional, and that's when you take away the run game and put everything on Will Howard's shoulders. Now, if Will Howard plays the way he's been playing the last couple of games, then it's going to be really tough to beat Ohio State. But I do think if you can stop the run, make quick decisions, you can have a little bit of a different story. But now on the flip side, which is the side I'm worried about the most for Texas, which Quinn Ewers is going to show up. Quinn Ewers is one of the best quarterbacks if he can sit in the pocket and be clean from a delivering the ball standpoint. But if you can't run the ball, which they cannot run the ball against Arizona State, if you can't run the ball against Arizona State, I promise you these things from Ohio can be in the box a hat for a hat and stop you running. Can they get to Quinn Ewers only bringing 4? The dictation of Texas offense scoring points is whether or not Quinn Ewers will be stayed upright the entire game.
The weird part about it, though, is, Texas couldn't run the football against Arizona State. That was surprising because only a week before that, I saw him rush for 292 against that Clemson defense. Again, a lot of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde when it comes to Texas. The 2 performances against Georgia, I was left scratching my head. But then again, I was at the Michigan game when Quinn Ewers looked like a world beater, and they beat Wink Martindale off the field. Here's one of the things. First off, kudos to you for picking the Buckeyes. That was your national championship preseason, right? And you doubled down on that when we had the 12-team playoff set. The Buckeyes were your horse. Anybody with eyeballs the last couple of weeks knows that they've looked like the best football team. Here's what I wonder. Obviously, I played quarterback at Michigan, so, I was very proud the way that Michigan was able to play against the Buckeyes in the horseshoe, 21-point underdogs, right, to be able to win that football game the way they did. I think there's a couple things people have to understand. It wasn't just a change of scheme for the Buckeyes. Yes, we were all scratching our head as to why they weren't going tempo and getting the football to Jeremiah Smith as much as possible. But also, Wink Martindale, the defensive coordinator for Michigan, played a big role in that, right? Played a big role in them not being able to get things going, and they won that football game. And for a lot of people who only watched that game, they thought, hey, the Buckeyes are trash. Forget this $20 million roster. You stuck with them, and they have really great football players, and they've looked like world beaters. My question to you now, though, is for Texas, because everyone's just assuming that the Buckeyes are going to run Texas off the field. I'm saying, well, this is still a really good football team in Texas with really good football players. The line's been jumping around from -6 to -5.5 Buckeyes, something like that. Do you think that the line is right? I mean, is this just going to be an OSU blowout, or is Texas going to keep this thing tight?
I never think at this point it's tough for me to think a line is right after what Ohio State has been doing to people. I think Texas is a very good football team. I think they have a very underrated defense that didn't get talked about enough throughout the year. But the way Ohio State's playing, I just don't think the quarterback position at Texas is good enough to overcome as good as Ohio State is as a football team. The 5.5 is a dangerous line. To be honest with you, I like the under more at 53.5. I think that's too many points.
Really?
Yeah.
That's an interesting play. I think a lot of money's going to come in on the over. I'm not even going to try and answer how much we're going to see Arch Manning. I don't know anymore. Sometimes we see him go in there like against Texas A&M right there near the end of the season. He has some huge runs. Then we see in the SEC championship game not really used that much. I don't know how much Arch Manning's going to be used. Texas is going to win or lose the football game based off of how Quinn Ewers plays. And to your point, I think the more that Texas can protect him and keep him upright, the better chance they have. I still remember the guy going into Tuscaloosa a year ago, not getting sacked once and beating the Nick Saban-led Alabama team. I know what the kid is capable of. I think Texas is going to come out and play hard. Let's see if they can get a run game going the way they did against Clemson, because that'll really make things interesting. But if you're Notre Dame right now and you've solidified your spot in the national championship, right? Marcus Freeman taking over for Brian Kelly. Brian Kelly goes to LSU so that he can be playing in Natties, but it's Marcus Freeman at Notre Dame who are going to play in the national championship. It's easy to say, well, we'd rather see Texas, right, rather than see this Buckeye team who's just beating everybody by 30 points. But you have to prepare for either matchup. How would you see this going if they do find themselves matched up against Texas?
Well, I think it'd be a lot better for them, obviously, but I do think it's going to match up with you and the way your defense plays a little bit better. I mean, if you can take away the run game early from Texas and get up on them, then you force them into passing downs. But Notre Dame's got to fix some things on offense. I mean, they really do. You can't afford to come out the way you did against Penn State if you do that against Texas or Ohio State. They're good enough to bury you, right? And it's good to see, though, a team that we've talked about throughout the year, that their bread and butter is running the football. coming out and being down in the second half. And Riley Leonard really threw them to a win.
Mm-hmm.
And, that was the biggest surprise to me. And if you're Penn State, that's what I wanted to see. If you're going to beat me, you're going to have to beat me with Riley Leonard's arm. But I do think Penn State has a couple questionable calls on defense, staying in man that much. You're not going to see that from Texas or Ohio State because they're good enough, especially Ohio State with Caleb Downs. The closer he gets to the line of scrimmage, the better he is. So if you're Notre Dame, you're praying for Texas to win.
I've just got all sorts of thoughts right now because there's so much recency bias and there's so much emotion and passion when it comes to college football fans. I told Jeff Foxworthy when he was on our show last time, I said, with his, you might be a redneck if. I said, if you've rooted for your coach to get fired in the first quarter and rooted for him to get a contract extension in the third quarter, you might be a college football fan, right? So with Marcus Freeman right now, I just remember the way that team responded when he walked in the locker room the first time as the head coach. Obviously, they were so excited to have him, a player's coach type guy, but he has delivered. He's gone to the transfer portal 2 years in a row to get the top quarterback. Riley Leonard's had ups and downs, but say what you want, he's got his team in the national championship. Marcus Freeman's bought so much equity. I want to ask you about James Franklin, though, at Penn State. The knock has been, James Franklin will beat everyone he's supposed to, right? But when he faces teams who are favored against him, like the Buckeyes, they were up 10-0 on them in Happy Valley this year. Penn State lost that football game. Oregon was favored against him in the Big Ten championship game. They fought. It was back and forth, but Oregon won that football game. And here they go in a dead pick'em, really, at kickoff against Notre Dame in a semifinal. Penn State up 10-0 at one point, loses this football game. How much of an overreaction is there going to be from Penn State fans against
I think there's going to be overreaction. I think it's deserved.
You think it's justified?
Yeah, I do. At the end of the day, we have numbers to tell us.
For what? Like, they're not going to fire the guy.
He's 3-17 against top 10 teams.
So what do you say? Like, he's going to keep
it. No, you can't fire a guy from making it to the semifinals and the playoffs. You can't do that, but you had SMU and Boise State. You had the easiest track. You had to win one serious game to make it to a national championship. And you can do that with walking in the halftime with the lead. So at the end of the day, all the fingers are going to be pointed at James Franklin, and they should be pointed at him because sooner or later you have to win a game with an average with the same roster. And and he's not good at doing that. Can't beat Michigan. He can't beat Ohio State, and obviously can't beat Notre Dame walking with a halftime lead. So sooner or later, it's not the plane, it's the pilot.
Yeah, no doubt, man. That's good stuff. I want to recap a couple of the bets here. 5-1 for me on the day. Notre Dame money line, first half under 21.5, largest lead under 14.5. We finally got a really close ball game there. Notre Dame plus 6.5, plus the under 52.5. That one held, right? Wasn't it 51 total points, I think? 51. So that same game parlay, Notre Dame first drive field goal. That one did not hit, but Penn State first drive punt. So 5-1. And again, Crane and Company here. I'm David Cohn. This is Glenn Crane. Jay Crane not with us because he is at the hospital with his wife, Reed. Baby Viola is on the way. We're awaiting updates on that. My prediction for her is 7 pounds, 12 ounces, 20.5 inches. I know the Booster Club has put in all sorts of bets. I think you've got 8 pounds, 3 ounces on your guess. Again, as much fun as it is to be here at the Mission Cigar and Social live streaming this awesome football game, the first priority is to make sure that baby comes and that she and mama are both healthy. Anything else here?
Anything else? So live streaming tomorrow.
Live streaming tomorrow from somewhere. It's supposed to be a snowstorm here in Nashville. Everyone say, oh, so you think this is a situation where they're just trying to get the golf course to themselves?
I think so, yeah.
So they get a good tee time?
It's amazing how that works out, right?
So you're taking the Buckeyes, right? It's going to be Notre Dame. Okay, I don't know if I can take Texas. I'm going to think about it over the course of tonight. But again, thank you everyone who tuned in. Thank you for being here. Thank you to Mark and Monty Collins for having us here at Mission. Thank you to Mayflower Cigar. Thank you to our production team, Justine, Mike, for setting everything up. Again, we had a heck of a ball game.
Yeah.
Man. Any final words? Why don't you send us off, man?
Congrats to Notre Dame. Congrats to David for the pick. Congrats.
And shout out to my brother Todd and his wife Claire. I got a new nephew this morning at 6 a.m., baby Wyatt, and he hit his first bet, Notre Dame +1.
I love it. Can't wait to go see this new baby. She's out. I'm ready to meet her. Thank all y'all for joining us. Make sure you hit that like, hit the subscribe button. Just like the chances of Penn State making to the national championship. We're going.